Good afternoon to the welcome to the afternoon extra bonus show we're doing. Every once in a while we can't fit it all in during the morning, so we'll do an afternoon show once in a while. We are going to bring in just a few moments Bo Polny, who talks about. I'm going to let him introduce his topic and how he positions what he does, but you're going to see charts and graphs, and you're going to hear him talk about things like gold and silver and what God's saying about the immediate future. Especially our immediate future is where I think I have my greatest interest, but I also, he's talking about long-term future and how we as believers can be prepared to financially and all of that. It's really fascinating. You'll hear Bo quote our prophets. He's very much into the prophets that we put in, Kim Clement, Robin Bullock, all the other ones. You'll hear him comment and even quote them to kind of prove the point of what God has shown him about how to discern the times and seasons. He does it by the scriptures. I'm going to let him show you how to do that. All right, without further delay, let's bring in Bo Polny. Hey, Bo, how are you?
Steve, my goodness, wow, what an absolute pleasure. I cannot believe that I am today on Elijah.
Yeah, people have been trying to get you on this program for a long time, and I've been trying to figure out what all you're teaching and showing, and I've watched several of your programs. So, Bo, let's do this. Let's just jump in and tell people what in the world you're all about, how you came to these understandings over many years, and I'm just going to turn it over to you. We'll start with the slideshow. Oh, I'm supposed to tell you, under the description, either in Facebook or YouTube, there is a downloadable, I believe it's a PDF. Is it a PDF, Bo?
Yes.
You can download that and watch and go through that PDF while the show is going, or you can just watch the slides on the show today and download it later. It doesn't matter. You'll get more access to the charts and graphs that you can look at your leisure, even if you do it after the program. So, okay, Bo, go for it.
Thanks. No, appreciate it, Steve. Thank you again. What a pleasure. The best place I can tell you the starting point is, our God, he's a God of time and he's a God of seasons. And the Lord does nothing before first speaking through his servants, the prophets. Now, I don't consider myself a prophet, but what I do get, and I know regularly, I get downloads. I get charts. I get patterns, and I get God says to me look at this and look at that. The fascinating part of what I get, and then I overlay everything I get and I believe to be true that I'm hearing. I overlay it with the prophets. And what are the prophets? God speaks right through them. It's incredible to watch Robin Bullock on your show. It's incredible to watch Hank Kuhneman, and it's truly incredible to watch this happen. But I want to inform all of your viewers that God has a plan. God planned all of this. God is in complete control. God has been in control since the beginning of time. But everything I'm going to discuss today, and it's in a PDF presentation, my latest updates. I got some new downloads this past weekend. Please download it, your viewers, download it, print it. You just look at or save it to your computer. But in there are some truly incredible timelines that I want to go through. And you're going to start to see how incredible our God is and how precise he is. Nice. Because we're living in biblical times, which have now begun as of last year, and we're watching everything unfold. Nothing is random. Everything was planned, and this goes right down to the statue of Daniel 2, when the tall statue of all the kingdoms. We'll talk about that today. All of this is coming to be, and we're at the tail end of it. So it's really amazing, Stephen. Yeah. If you have questions, please ask, because, this is my first time with you. And so, many of your viewers, same thing, first time in my YouTube channel, Gold 2020 forecast, that we've got over 7 million views there. But the point being is, I'm still new to your channel here.
Yeah.
So, so please have your viewers download, save the PDF. Steve, please, you ask questions.
Yeah, let me just ask this one, and then I'll try not to interrupt unless I really think someone needs to be clear. Tell people, if you can, in your own words, the goal of what you're doing is to what? To prepare God's people. What is it that where are people to go with this?
Exactly. The whole point of my presentation is to show the world that God himself is in complete control. But what do we have in end times? When you read Revelation, right? It's the wheat and the tares. They rise together. Okay. So for those who think that Satan is just, God's going to come in, wipe out Satan right now, and it's all over. It's not that simple. It's actually very complicated how this whole thing's going to play out. So right now, as we head into, and as we are in end times, as we head into the return of Christ, right, we're heading into the rise of the wheat and the tares. Right now, the tares are in control. Just look around. Okay. That's the truth. Okay. The tares are in control. We're waiting for the vengeance, okay? Because vengeance is coming. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And so the point being is we're looking for a point in time where we see the movement of hands, God's hand, and everything changes. But the point being is the wheat then starts to rise aggressively with the tares. So this is the bridegroom scenario. But the bride needs to separate itself from the cities, from major population areas. So my point is to educate the world on how to do that, and how to do it is to prepare. Number one is you can't do any of this if you don't believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Okay, so that's top of the food chain. Okay, but now after that, you've got to prepare food and water, and most importantly, you can't build anything without means. This is critical, okay? We talk regularly about, I've heard so many times, we're not supposed to talk about gold or silver or God. You understand that God is not going to return to this earth until the current money system falls. And the current money system is based on paper. God's not a God of paper. Read it, read the Bible. That which is thrown into a fire doesn't stand. The whole, I forget the passage that is, right? But the point is gold and silver don't burn. So my point is to educate the world and how to prepare not only themselves, but their family, how to protect themselves and their family for what is coming, because times are coming on this earth that are going to be horrible. We know it's in Revelation, right? But it's for them, not for the bride. We're to be tucked away in the mountains, separate in arks, and those arks will be protected by archangels. And so we'll talk about all those things in the future. But how do you do all that? With means. And God's going to provide the means, because we know our God is a loving God, and he's going to provide the means for his bride, because there's a royal wedding coming. So I hope I've answered.
Yeah, that's good.
I can give you the big picture.
Yeah,
but the big picture is don't do nothing, because that's what Satan wants you to do, is do nothing. They forever want you to be unprepared. But the Bible's all about, hope, love, and prepared. That's critical part of the Bible is to prepare it, and so that is my, I know that is my deep calling to show the world, and how we can prepare more from a financial standpoint. And God is so like, what do I do? So for 20 years, I started studying the Bible, but I'm not like a scholar of the Bible. I know every single phrase of the Bible. What I've done specifically is I love numbers. So I study the math within the Bible. And this is what started to blow my mind, because as I started to analyze the Bible, the timelines in Revelation, Daniel talks about the 1260 days. So, that's right in the Bible. It's right in Revelation. None of this is made up. Okay. So then I know that God, his money is gold and silver, right? And again, that's in Haggai or Hajjaie 2:8. And it says, the silver is mine and the gold is mine, declares the Lord of hosts. So
I gotta ask you, what was that? 2:8?
Haggai, Haggai.
Oh, Haggai. Oh, okay.
I can't pronounce that wrong.
Okay, Haggai. Okay.
2:8.
I thought we were hearing a new Middle East word here.
Sorry about that. I keep trying to pronounce it. I always get it wrong.
Oh, okay.
So, and it says, so the gold and silver are God's money. Okay. And so I started looking at, okay, well, if it's God's money, then and if we're talking end times, it would only make sense that it would probably somehow correlate to the price movement of gold and silver, or the cycles, because cycles are nothing but a circle. So a circle is 360 degrees. God's calendar is 30 days per month times 12. So basically 360 days is a circle. That's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
So then what I started studying is, okay, well, how does this relate to gold and silver? So if you go to the PDF, this is like a great starting point for your viewers. If you go to page 2, if your staff can maybe pull that up, page 2, and you'll see it's a secret cycle, but what you'll find is that gold, each cycle is actually 1 3/4 of a year, which specifically lines up to 21 months. So if you look, you'll see that gold tops and makes a high every single 21 months.
Wow.
Like, if that isn't crazy,
Yeah.
but it happened. I'm not making this up.
Crazy.
So what I started to discover is, and then there's like layers upon layers, and then there's also this cycle we'll talk about later, but it's a 1 2 4 4 2 1. So it's a death to life cycle. So life and then death, and so that goes to to baptism, right? So you die to be reborn, and so all these things have been layered in terms of the overall cycles. So right now you'll see that I'm the only person in the world. And I don't want credit for this, all glory to God. But basically what I got to understand was that how the cycles were working for 21 months. So I forecast in advance, several months in advance. In 2011, silver's top at whatever top at $40-something, $49, and then gold's top 2 or 3 months later to the exact day. How did I do that? Okay, that was not luck on my part. It was just using this cycle. Wow. I've never really shown this to anybody, but your staff said, hey, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you do what you do? So then God said, just show them, show them. It's right there. So the point being is that these things are factual events that happened. It was able, it was possible to forecast gold's top in 2011 to the exact day and silver's top to the exact day. And so that's like the start of what I started to discover, how all of this moves relative to Daniel's timeline or the cycle of 1,260 days. Now, we are not in the last 70 weeks or the last cycle of Daniel, which then comes to the return. So we're not there yet, but we're heading into it. And then this is the crazy part, which I started to discover, and we'll talk about a little further too, is that how all the presidents tie in with this cycle. So the 1,260 days ties in with the presidencies from Obama, which we'll talk about, and then Trump, and then it's incredible. And then all of these things are just layered in, and the whole world is just perfectly lined up to this 1,260 day cycle.
Oh.
So that's a good starting place. And then if we go to the next page, page 9, which is another really amazing part. What I came to realize with mathematical calculations on page 3 basically talks about pivotal months. So pivotal months within the Bible. So God, it's called Vortex Math calculations. I don't want to get into the details of it, but your viewers can click on the links and watch it. It's really fascinating. But Vortex Math specifically is God's mathematical footprint. And so what started was in August of this year was a critical moment in time. And that would equate to the top of that pyramid right there where the 9 is. And that was a moment in time when Saudi Arabia signed a contract with Russia, nullifying the petrodollar agreement of 50 years ago. And so that lines up with the top. Now, 3 months later takes us into November. You'll find that majority of my presentation talks about November because it's right around the corner. So we'll talk about that. And then the next would be the 6th, takes us to February of next year. And then basically right up front, I'm telling all your viewers, God's in complete control. Satan's fallen. Everything is changed. By the time May of next year, you will not recognize where we are in time because the cycle is complete.
Wow.
So that's a nutshell right up front. But now let's get into how all of this happens. So if you go to the next page 4, so we are in the year of Jubilee. So 50 years ago, Nixon detached the United States dollar from gold. Okay, they created their own money. So as of that time point, as of August of 71, it was no longer, our money was no longer backed by gold and silver. It was backed by faith and confidence, but it was no longer backed by God's money. So therefore, evil created its own money. For 50 years, we've lived this. So now we're in the 50-year Jubilee, which started as of September 6th of this year. So what is a 50th year? It's a year of rest. It's a holy year. This is Leviticus 25, okay, 10. It talks specifically about the families return together. It's a time of the land, you will dwell in the land securely. I tell you this year, in the next 12 months, by September of next year, peace and safety come back to the United States.
So you're saying, you're looking at your calendar, you're looking at your numbers, and you're saying by the numbers, next year is going to be peace and safety.
Absolutely, but it all starts in November. What my presentation starts off is what started in November of last year ends in November of this year.
Okay, in a few weeks.
In a few weeks, yeah. So it starts November starts in a few weeks, and then so by the end of November, so by Thanksgiving, we should have seen the glory.
Okay, now I'm gonna make sure I'm getting this right, because when does this good year start? It starts this coming November.
Okay, so let's start. So if you go to let's just scroll back to be very clear here, so we're not confusing. Go to page 3.
Okay.
So page 3.
November 2021.
Yeah. So page 3, the circled point number 3 on the triangle on the Vortex Math. Okay, that's November.
That's when it starts.
That's when it starts.
Good.
Okay. And so February is going to be epic. And then May is going to be crazy. By May, it's just crazy. It's game over. It's complete victory.
Wow.
And then that'll take us into the end of the Jubilee, which would be September of next year. And so,
Bo, you're saying you're not only talking about gold and silver, but you're talking a lot about gold and silver. You're talking about what's happening in the political arena. You're talking about what's happened in peace versus war, all of that. You're actually including all of those things. Am I saying that right?
Yes. No, this is how I look at it. This is the prophetic word that I've got. Gold and silver will rise with God's kingdom. I'm going to repeat that. Gold and silver.
Excuse me.
It's no problem. So, bless you. Gold and silver will rise with God's kingdom. So gold, as it goes up with silver, and silver is going to take the lead. Silver is going to be the first one to explode vertical, and it's going to take the lead, and it's God's money. It's going to take the lead, and then it's going to demarcate the birth of God's kingdom. And that's supposed to start, I believe, on the 3, which would be marked as November of this year, probably about mid to end of November of this year, where we should see all the fireworks truly begin. If we scroll over back to page 4, so with it being a year of Jubilee, we're supposed to see families, the clans come back together, peace and safety come together. It's blessings. Now, this is critical, and this is also coordinates perfectly with the prophetic word of Robin Bullock. He's basically said, that evil will return. Okay, and one of his prophecies, I think 6 months ago or something, he said that. So we're going to see a fall of Satan, of evil, because they came in early, and you'll see why on the cycles that I'm laying out to you. Right now, they're not supposed to be here, but they've basically come in early. So God's going to give a window of about 3.5 years for his church to prepare. And so what we're seeing right now is the year of Jubilee is going to bring financial means to his church.
And Bo, let me clarify to the people what Robin had said is that the deep state would be taken down. But he said what they're going to do is they're going to then go underground for a season, and they're just going to disappear, but they're not really gone.
Yes,
they're just behind the scenes preparing for their next thing.
Correct, because it's the wheat and the tares, right? The tares are there's only one entity that can take out the tares, and that's called Jesus Christ. Okay, he's coming for the return to take down evil. Okay, right now it's the hand of God. The vengeance is coming. We're not having judgments yet. We're just having vengeance. So the vengeance is going to give God's church, his bride, a window to prepare. So we're coming into what's called the Red Sea moment. We're coming into, Leviticus 25 states, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt. So that's the release from bondage from the debt-based fiat money system. So that's what's about to happen to give his bride a window of time. If we go to the next page, page 5, what we're seeing is, we're in end times. We're having heaven coming closer to earth. And so we're basically seeing a lot of crazy starting to happen. Page 6 describes how they're doing it all. Okay, we've all seen the movie Wizard of Oz. It's nothing more than the wizard is a magician and Oz is OZ for ounces of money. So this is the wizard, the magician of money. These are the magicians of money, period. Okay, what did they do? They decreed with Nixon that their money is money. They detached it from gold, and now the world relies on their money, but they decreed it to be money. It's nothing more than a decree. It's nothing more than an official agency saying that's money. It's not God's money. It's just a decree to be money. So that's the essence of what we're living in this world of money that's just decreed to be money. But go to the next page, page 7. This is a truly epical part of our world. Daniel, this is probably the most incredible prophecy to illustrate to your viewers that God is God, the creator of all things. And to prove it to the world, he wrote the story from the end to the beginning. So that you might know that God is God. Well, what does the prophecy say? 2,500 years ago, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. He didn't tell anybody the dream. Daniel stepped forward and says, there is a God in heaven who can tell you what the dream is, and he has told me your dream. And he prophesies the whole dream. Steve, he laid out the kingdom of Babylon, which was Nebuchadnezzar. Then came Persia, then came Greece, then came Rome, then came the papacy. All of this was prophesied 2,500 years ago. This is a story that goes back to Eden, and that's where the world is headed, back to Eden. But the point is, all of this is laid out on a story that was a prophecy given 2,500 years ago, Daniel 2. The next slide is what's about to happen. I believe, based on my calculations, that we're supposed to see this in November. But we will see it in the year of Jubilee. If it doesn't happen in November, then probably the next cycle would be February. But I honestly believe it goes down in November of this year, so next month, into the latter part.
And you call it the Great Fall and Fall. What do you mean by the Great Fall?
So a rock. So the last part of the Daniel prophecy is Daniel 2:34. It says, as you look, a stone. It doesn't say the stone. It doesn't say the stone is Christ. Okay, it doesn't say the stone. It says a stone was cut out by no human hand, and it struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and it broke them to pieces. The statue is all the kingdoms that have existed since Nebuchadnezzar. That's Babylon. That is fallen down. It gets taken down. So that's the fall of all these kingdoms that come down. And so that's the image that gets taken down. And then we get so that's the great fall. The great fall is Babylon. The fall of Babylon, the fall in fall. And then back to prophecy, we know that Kim Clement talks specifically about they fall in fall. Okay, well, November is in fall. Fall doesn't end until December 21st.
Okay.
So all of these things are supposed to happen here before the end of fall, which would be 21st of December. And I believe it goes down. We're going to start to see incredible things start to happen here in the month of November into December. But this is just into the end of this year, our year that we use, not God's year, because God's calendar started September 6th on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so remember, this is not the Hebrew calendar; it's God's calendar that the Hebrew nation has been counting for all these centuries. But it's God's calendar. So then the next page talks about how have they done everything that they've done? How do they control the world? There's actually Lance Wallace did a great presentation on it, and he talked about the 7 hills of Rome. I take it a little step further and talk more about the gates. Because it says in the Bible, the gates of hell shall not prevail. Okay, so what are the gates? The gates are the financial system, the church, the family, the education. What these people have done through money. Okay, they've created money out of thin air. Let me describe the financial system that we live in, Steve. This is very important for viewers to think about. It took 100 years to make the first $1 trillion. That's why when you and I were young, right, you could buy a car for $2,000, $3,000. Homes were $30,000, right? Homes didn't get more expensive. They've created more money, so there's more liquidity around. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the forget his name. He basically stated that in the past, Robert Kiyosaki, in the past 12 months, they've created 40% of the US money supply in the past 12 months.
They just printed it.
They just add zeros digitally. Just like when the crash happened of March of last year, they created $7 trillion that weekend to prop the markets back up. Okay. So like I tell, people that I speak with, or, who I meet, my question to you, if all that makes you sleep well, then that's great. Because not my job to tell people what to do. My job is to show you timelines and have you, give you visualizations as to, how they're doing it all. And then you sleep on it. Because when people make decisions with their head, Steve, that's greed. They're making wrong decisions, because that's how Satan can control us through through our heart, right? That's where God sees our heart. So you have to, how does it feel to you, things that we're talking about here today? So how does evil done it? Well, think about it, right? The funny thing, we know that they've created their own money. Now they control the church through the 501c3s. They've created mortgages, right? So now the wife has to go to work. So both people are working. And, what is a mortgage, right? Death grip. That's the definition of it, right? So now the husband and wife go to work. And now guess who takes care of your children? The state. Well, fantastic, right? And guess who writes, they control the books that the kids read. Everything is controlled. Then you go into the military and the government. How did they take out 45, right? With the money. Is it plain and simple? That was all. And then now look what they're trying to do, with the military. What happened when 45 was in, right? Think Twitter, Facebook, what were they doing? Okay. So these gates to hell, and then talk about Los Angeles and the movies, all they have to do is pay off enough people to get to the top, and you control the gate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
well,
the money.
Let me just add this. When I was younger, all I had is if I had so many dollars, that's good. If I had more dollars, it never occurred to me that they could just print as many as they wanted since Nixon. And it's all based on whatever they decide to tell you it's worth. If they tell you that's worth $1, they give you a big stack. But at some point, you have to pay the piper. At some point, it all crashes down under its own weight, because everyone finally realizes this is just paper. It doesn't mean anything. That's kind of what you're warning against right now.
That's exactly that. And we'll talk further about, but that's exactly the essence of it. If what I described to you and what Steve described to you, you can sleep well with that. Well, we all have, the whole reason we're at where we're at, Steve, is because of free will. So we have free will to choose whatever we want to do. I'm trying to illustrate some very important points to your viewers as to why it's important to be prepared for things that are to come. Because the Bible is nothing but about prepare for the great day of the Lord. Right? So the bigger question is, why are they doing all this? Well, we know that Antichrist comes back, right? We know that Antichrist takes power. And there's actually a season, because God's a God of time and seasons. God has allotted Antichrist a window, but it's not in 2021 or 2022. And so what are we seeing them do? Why are they doing all this? If you go to the next page, again, I didn't make this up. I'm just putting the pieces together. Have your viewers ever Googled the word Georgia Guidestones?
I've never heard of it.
Okay, well, Google it. I'm just telling you this. Google the word Georgia Guidestones, and number one, Steve, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. The problem with that is there's over 7 billion people. So their plan is depopulation. They want to kill us over 6.5 billion people. And who would want to do something like that? I have 3-letter word for you. It's called evil.
Yeah.
Okay. So who would want to do something like that? People don't want to, Steve. It's evil. And remember, when Christ was on this earth, Steve, when he wandered after he got baptized, he wandered into the desert. And what did Satan do? He tempted him, didn't he? Right? And Christ kept referencing phrases within the Bible, right? But one of the lines near the end was, I think the last one was, he offered him, bow down to me and I will make you a king on this earth. And Jesus said to him, get behind me. And he just shut them down. The point being is, these people they bow down. And they're kings on this earth. And they have a fake money system and they control it all. And they just tell you what their plans are. How sick is that? Who would erect pillars like, but these are their 10 commandments. So now let's get into the good stuff. Okay, so let's get into page 11. Page 11 talks specifically about how this plays out. We are right now in the Golden Jubilee, the 50th year of the Lord's favor. So I want to read this to give you and your viewers some real hope, because God is a God of love and he loves his bride. He loves us. He created us. So God's not going to abandon us. So as horrible as things look, Steve, our God wins. And he's got it all planned out. So let me take you through what Isaiah 61 states. It says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring the good news to the poor. He has sent me to comfort the brokenhearted and to proclaim that the captives will be released and the prisoners will be freed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, the Jubilee, and the day of his vengeance. Remember, our God is a precise God. He speaks precisely. When he says the year of the Lord's favor, he means the year of the Lord's favor. When he says the day of vengeance, he means day of vengeance. Day.
I never actually made that connection that one is a year, favor is for a year, and vengeance is for a day. I've never made that connection before.
And so what do I do? I'm an analyst of time. You know, I never knew what I did. I got a prophetic word from a prophet that basically where God called me out as Bo. He actually said my name, which kind of freaked me out, but he did. He called me by name. And then he says, my analyst of time. So, you know, that was probably the biggest event. I'll what can match that event in your life? For sure. You know, when that happens, right? Yeah. But that's what happened. What I've come to realize is God is a precise God. You know, everything about him is absolute precision. And when he speaks, I've listened to the prophets, Steve, and his choice of words is precise.
Wow.
When he speaks. So you have to take it for the precision that it is. And I want to give you an example of precision, right? Which we can all relate to, the Red Sea moment. We're talking the day. In the morning, Pharaoh was coming to kill Israel. By evening, Pharaoh and his army were dead. That is called a day of vengeance.
Wow.
Saith the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want your viewers to understand how hopeful things can look. Our God doesn't forsake us. He has a plan for us. But there's a reason that he does things. And I want to talk about those reasons as well, too. So, and I do want to, we'll talk in a few minutes, go to page 12. And I think your viewers are going to love this. But, you know, the United States, when you say the fall and fall, the prophetic thing that I got last week was the United States is going to parallel what we saw with Lazarus. And I want to go through this, but, you know, Mary, I'm going to go through, this is John 11. Let's go through some of the lines here. But Mary says, Lord, whenever it says he, you can replace that with Lazarus or he, you can replace with the United States. So it's Lord, he, the United States, whom you love, is ill. I'd say we're ill.
Yeah.
Would you not agree? You know, that doesn't take hard to agree with that one.
We're sick.
Absolutely. We're ill, you know, and then so what did Jesus says? This is beautiful. The reply, the illness, the USA does not lead to death. For it is the glory of God so that the Son of God can be glorified through it.
Good.
Okay. And then Jesus says to the disciples, Lazarus, again, the United States has died. So we're going to fall in November. So we'll look like God forsaken. It's going to let God abandon us. It's going to look horrible when the glory shows up. It's initially going to look horrible if you don't know that God did all this, right?
Yeah.
And then, and for your sake, I am glad that I was not there so that you might believe. It's all about getting glory because God is a loving judge, but he's a jealous judge. He wants the glory. It's not to go to man. 45 wasn't supposed to get the glory. He was never supposed to get it. God gets it.
Yeah.
God gets the glory in this. And then so, you know, we get into the next part of Lazarus. The United States has already been in the tomb for 4 days. So don't be surprised if in November we go dark.
And we talked about, we've been warning our people about the coming 3 or 4 days of darkness or 10 days, depending on who you hear it from. There's been prophesied between 3 to 10 days of darkness coming up. And people are saying, what is that? What is that? Well, you're picking it up out of the word. I'm picking it up out of basically rumors. This is not even necessarily prophetic. And other prophets are saying it out of the prophetic ozone. They're getting it from the Lord. But the three are agreeing. We're in for a few days of darkness coming up here.
Absolutely. That is the essence. What this is my point. I'm trying to get across how timelines that we live in layer in beautifully with the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what God, I said, like Lazarus, read Lazarus and then layer in your timelines. And so it's really amazing. But so don't be surprised if we go dark for 4 days. Will it be longer? I don't know. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if we go dark. The days don't really matter, but Lazarus was in the tomb for 4 days. Then Jesus says to Martha, Lazarus, or United States, will rise again. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, shall he, United States, live.
Good.
Jesus then further says, I did not tell you that if you believe, Jesus states, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment in time, the Isaiah 61 moment, where you see the glory of God. It's the moment that's coming. And then to finish off Lazarus, the United States, Jesus says, come out. And so that moment when we come out, that's the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening is when the new era officially arrives. So we're stepping into a new era. And this whole new era is going to be biblical. It's the power. It's the fall. That moment, it will end up marking the fall. You'll never be able to go back from that moment. That's like the Red Sea moment where the fall of Goliath.
And so, Bo,
Daniel 2.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you saying that the time may come, literally weeks from now, we don't know if it's exactly 4 days or a few days or 10 days, but that it would actually almost look like we're defeated. It's over. Yes. It's death. Lazarus is dead. We're gonna be tempted to feel like it's over.
Yes.
And that's God's setup for breakthrough, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it has to look. It goes to the extreme of all extremes, and then the glory arrives.
Okay.
And that's just how God's operated. When Israel was pinned up against the Red Sea, Moses, why have you brought us here to die? Steve, they were finished in their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And then then Moses steps forward and says, stand still and watch the salvation of the Lord, for he will work for you today.
That's good.
And that's the moment that we're about to see, where God works for his church, for his bride. It's really, really exciting. But so page 13, this is a prophetic word again. The biggest, thy kingdom come. That's really essence. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. The biggest move of God's Spirit ever in the history of this world is what's coming. Ever. One of God's biggest surprises ever to hit the elite, who have manipulated the price of everything for generations. The dollar will crash, Goliath will fall. God's people will begin to rise up in America and the world. So those are prophetic words. We go to next page. What's coming is when this new whole system goes live, it's the kingdom economy. And so you can page 14. There's basically 4 biblical references there with relation to money and the kingdom economy. So reviewers can read that. But essence is Deuteronomy 28 was flipped upside down by Satan. Deuteronomy 28 says that we are to be the lender, not the borrower. By them creating fictional money out of thin air, they've turned all of us into borrowers or slaves, debt slaves. So that's what has happened. We go to page 15. So this is really an important part. The kingdom economy, I believe, starts up in November into December, but before year end. I believe it, again, still most likely November. That's where we start of silver fever, gold rush, all begins there. Couple prophetic words about silver and gold. Silver and gold are God's true currency, given to us to further his kingdom here on earth. Okay. By the end of this decade, I don't mean tomorrow, but by the end of this 20 decade, okay, there will be a moment in time when the currency system we know will totally fail. God's kingdom, and I've stated it before, I'll state again, God's kingdom will rise with gold and silver. And then there's always the people out there saying, well, we're not supposed to talk about gold or silver or money. I want people to read, and they always reference Ezekiel 7:19. Please read the words, because God is a precise God, and he speaks with precision. Ezekiel 7:19 says they cast their silver into the streets, and their gold is like an unclean thing. Their silver and gold are not able to deliver them in the great day of the Lord. The key point to take away is they, and them are not my people who are called by my
it's those
name.
upon
In Second
whom God,
Chronicles.
it's those upon whom God is reaping his vengeance.
Correct. So I want your viewers to please understand don't state Ezekiel 7:19 incorrectly, because it's very
important, very important,
very, very clear when he states. Now let's get into some more really awesome timelines. So page 16 talks about the new era. So the old era, as we knew it, Steve, ended on May 26th of 2021. How you know that is God, God shows his truths in the stars, in the moons, the sun and the moon and the stars. Okay. So the point being is, when you look at that chart pattern, you'll notice that from the eclipses, it's mathematical perfection by the hand of God that shows that 694 days backwards and forwards, 1,904 days backwards and forwards, 2,259 days backwards and forwards for eclipses to the mark.
Wow.
All relate to May 26, 2021.
Wow. And
that
other than Bo, is there something about May 26 in the Hebrew calendar or God's calendar, or did you just discover that date?
Oh, God showed me some things I want to show it. The next page, you're going to love. I wanted to show your viewers because that's critical. So then we go to the following is page 17, and now you're going to see what God showed me. He goes, take a protractor, and I will show, and I'll have you understand my timeline. And so on the right side of the page, you're going to see in blue, May 26th. That's a starting point. Okay. Yeah. We're going to go up, and you're going to go up to 100 days or 80 days. And that was the Nixon moment. So that was last August that just passed. That was the day Kabul fell. That marked 50 days to the mark where the 50 days to the mark where Nixon detached gold. Now, this is where it gets good. Now we're going to talk about Goliath. So Goliath stands on August 24th. That's the tipping point. What happened? I knew something wild was supposed to happen with relation to the money system in August on the 24th. And what happened specifically was Russia signs a contract with Saudi Arabia, nullifying the U.S. contract, because you have to remember, there's no reason for Saudi Arabia to have two military contracts, Steve. And the only reason Saudi Arabia had the contract in the first place because they were buying the U.S. bonds. That was the agreement for military protection from the United States.
Contract for what then, Bo? What's the contract?
So what happened was on August. So the Saudi Arabia contract with the United States was very simple.
Okay.
We protect you and all your oil. You buy our bonds.
Okay.
That was the essence of the contract in a nutshell. Okay. Well, now they signed a contract with Russia. So guess what they're not buying anymore?
More bonds.
U.S. bonds. Right. So the point being is that's the tipping point for Goliath, which we talked about in Daniel 2. So now we get into Daniel 2. Daniel is now tipping. He's starting to fall. We get into the Jubilee. So we get in September 6th, Rosh Hashanah. Well, what happens on September 6th? Now, you may not be aware of this, but these are all, and if you go on page 17, I've got the links there. You just got to click them. Top right-hand corner, it takes you right to the page. So everything is referenced. None of this is made up. So China Lehman's moment event. So a $300 billion China Evergrande bonds halted due to liquidation panic occurred on precisely September 6th. Why that's important? Because the Evergrande bonds are tied in with virtually every single country, and they it's like one of the largest bonds contracts that go across the entire world.
And this is Evergrande was just one massive private company in China
that has been linked with it's. So one person described it, who knows who's talking about, basically as the fire that leads to an explosion.
Okay. So it's one of the biggest companies in the earth, I think.
China. Yeah. And they control real estate. So this now leads to bonds.
Yeah.
So this is the fire that's going to lead to a massive nuclear explosion into next year.
Nuclear metaphorical.
Correct. Yeah. Financial. Yes.
Yeah.
Financial. Please.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
So that takes us to, so we keep going on that protractor. We get to September 22nd. That was the fall. So now we're in fall. 20 days was the 16th, 40 days, 40 nights was the 16th. And now we're basically getting into the 21st with 45 days. And really we're getting into November 22nd. Remember on page 3, we talked about the math itself, the Vortex Math. So November takes us to November 22nd, which the statue of Goliath should have fallen on his face. So the financial system has a massive problem. Potentially, that's what the cycle timeline is indicating, by November, the end of November, 10 to the 22nd-ish, on or before, somewhere in there. And then that leads into Goliath being fully upside down on its head 3 months later in February.
Okay.
So by that time, the bonds and everything should be massive problems. So first, there's the dollar debacle, then a bond event next year, which leads to just astronomical. And so basically, that's the fall of the financial system that's controlling everything. That then leads to the rise of God's kingdom. So that is the essence of page 17, but then finishing up another 90 days takes us to May of next year. So that would be the Vortex Math 9 that we talked again on page 3. So that's what we're looking at, is key dates: November, February, May of next year. By May of next year, it's game over for them. But it's game over way before that. But it's over. It's literally over by May. And if you want to talk about the return of 45, right? Who's the builder? So you don't come. So remember, this is what I want to step back to, because I repeated several times. You don't get the rise of God's kingdom without the rise of his money. Please remember that. So if a financial system comes online that's based on gold and silver, who would do that? Well, who would be appointed for such a time as this? Who's the carpenter? Who's the builder? 45. So don't be surprised if we see, Kim Clement prophesied hypnotic November.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say everything I described would categorize as a hypnotic November, talking about Lazarus, talking about the birth of a financial system. So everything could potentially is supposed to occur in the month of November.
Let me make sure, because you had gotten to May and then you were back to November. So let me make sure that when you just mentioned 45 and something basically coming back, were you talking about November, or were you
yes.
Okay.
He would most likely have to come in November or by February to rebuild the financial system by May.
Okay. So it'd be rebuilt by May.
Those are great questions. So it'll be rebuilt by May. The financial would be rebuilt by May, but it would be based off a godly money system, God's money. Good. So, and then that coordinates beautifully, as I said earlier, with my gold cycles.
Yeah. Very cool.
So we shall see.
Yeah.
We shall see. But it's crazy to watch. Now, this is, I think, will help your viewers understand as to why we're at where we're at. So what happened, remember I said what started in November ends in November, was last November, this November.
Right.
So what we're seeing is a look behind the veil.
Mm-hmm.
Satan has a time to come in because God's a God of time and seasons, but it's not in 2021, 2022. They came in early. That coordinates with what Robin Bullock has said as well, too, how they're going to go underground. So starting in November, they go underground. And then we head into the new era. But basically, for the last 360 days, 360 degrees, cycle, circle, season, what happened was the world got a look behind the veil as we stepped away from the Declaration of Independence, because we signed a covenant with God. And a biblical covenant is crazy because a couple of things about Israel was chosen by God, whereas we, the United States, chose God. You see the difference?
Yeah.
So it's a brother-sister relationship, but we are the sister backing the brother of Israel. And so we, the United States, chose God. And so we have a covenant with God. And a covenant, read page 18. The bottom line is it's a promise. And if we don't hold the promise, when it's a biblical, actually, this is really important to read. A biblical covenant is an unconditional, permanent promise, and the promising parties must keep their promise, regardless of the other party's breach of their promise, and is enforceable by God. The 1776 Declaration of Independence was a biblical covenant, a promise by the founding fathers that all men are created equal. And in return, God promised and he blessed the United States and was born the United States, the greatest country in the world. And the promise was binding. However, last November, we the people, allowed this, we've been infiltrated. It's kind of like the, I know a good example, but basically we've been infiltrated all these decades. And because we got infiltrated by communist power, we basically allowed our country to go in the wrong direction. It happened over time. And so now for a season, we got to look what the enemy's plans are. We got to look behind the veil. And it's some pretty sick stuff.
And since you said everything is planned, you would then maintain that God orchestrated or allowed this whole fake thing to take place so that we could not only get a look behind the veil, but we get a good look and see how close we came to total destruction, total communism, right? So this was a God eye-opener for us on purpose.
Steve, I could not have said it better myself. That's exactly what happened, because God, he wants to Satan's job is to take as many souls with him to hell. God wants to save everybody. So he wanted to show his bride, his church, what's going on, what their plans are. And then we get a window of time. We get a window to prepare. That goes back to my initial presentation of, our job is to separate ourselves from evil, the wheat and the tares. Yeah. So that's a perfect explanation. So as of November, we start going in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And then that takes it by May. We will, the whole system should be built back online with 45 running the show.
I had a question on one of your presentations that I saw, and maybe there's a slide ahead of it. You actually had a date in November where you felt the worm would turn. I don't know if you used that term, but you said something like the 23rd or something.
That's page earlier, page 17. That's November 22nd.
So November 22nd, which is
that's
real
90.
Close.
It's 180 degree. It's 180 days or degrees from May 26th. So it's exactly opposite that time slide that we looked at. With all the eclipses.
And the way you had worded it on the previous one is everything had been going left, and suddenly on November 22 we turn right.
On or by, saying so. Don't put that date in stone. I don't want to. It's not for me to. I'm just doing the math.
Right.
And I'm saying so by that time, and then if you look, interestingly enough, when we looked earlier at Lazarus, it's interesting, but Lazarus, November, it's John 11:17. Lazarus had been in the tomb for 4 days.
Yeah.
So John 11:17.
Oh, wow.
So what does that mean? I don't know. But we're almost there.
Yeah.
It's truly fascinating to watch God's hand at work. And I'm just putting it to color.
Well, he bakes in all these numbers. I asked Robin about this. I said, how did he bake all this in? Like when that whole evergreen, the boat, got stuck in the canal. And it was odd at the time, it was a whole birthing canal type of a thing. It was the Red Sea. And I said, how did God bake that all in at the right date, at the right time? And his profound answer was, Steve, that's why we call him God.
Yeah, the creator of all things. All we can do is marvel what he does, because it's truly breathtaking. When I look at this stuff, I scratch my head. It's like, number one is how do I know to do some of these things? Number two is how do they even happen? I've had dates like in the past. I say, I said something crazy supposed to happen on April 20th, 21st of 2020. For the first time, and I said this in January last year, and then on that precise day, oil goes to zero or negative 38. First time in history. I didn't know that was going to happen. I had a date. Why? It was 1,260 days to the mark from the election of Trump.
Oh, man.
So from the election of Trump, 1,260 days, oil goes to zero Israel time.
And Bo, we've talked about the almighty dollar that used to be the almighty dollar. It's now, we understand it's a fiat currency, which means it's up to this point, since Nixon gave up the gold standard, it's based on the confidence of whoever said it's worth that. If the government says a dollar's worth a dollar, that's what you know, but you're saying the dollar as we know it must necessarily collapse.
Unless, and this is really a great question you have, because unless the hand of God arrives, unless we have that Red Sea moment, Steve, unless we have the day of his vengeance, these people will not stop.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it's the hand of God that takes it down, not the hand of anybody else. Right. All the glory of that event, the fall of Daniel 2, the stone, a stone that is described, is the glory of God, not anybody else.
Yeah. And
then that's the fall of their system and the birth of the other. And in between, we'll have some days of darkness.
Yeah.
And that's how this all plays out. You know, you've got Kim Clement talking about Hypnotic November. That was on page 2021. I think your viewers are going to love page 21. I got to give my wife credit on page 21. Yeah, this one's fun. This is another moment of glory. The road to Damascus.
I love it.
Come on. What is the chances that there's a city by the name of Damascus?
Oh, that's great.
It's the Saul who becomes Paul.
And not only that, but to Damascus, the U.S. even is in there. So it's like, oh, man, wow.
Yes, and then U.S. foot. I didn't even see that. There you go, Steve. So you saw something else that I didn't see.
It's just so in there.
Come on. Okay, that's nothing. There is one thing about I've learned, which is completely the truth. There's no coincidences in the Bible. It's not even a kosher word in the Hebrew text. You're like, there is no such thing as a coincidence. So, you know, that was a moment in time. This is another example of, you know, the glory and Isaiah 61, the day of vengeance, right? And how long did it take? Saul was ready to kill every single Christ believer, right? Every single one. And he knocks him off the horse. First things out of his mouth were, Lord, Lord. That took about 3 seconds for Saul to become Paul.
Yeah.
So for those that have no hope, come on, you know who our God is. He's almighty. He's not going to forsake us. Yeah. So it's really exciting to so have hope and have faith, because God's glorious and the glory is coming. But again, it's very important, because if the glory doesn't arrive, Steve, nothing changes, right? Because and back to Lazarus, right? Unless Christ showed up, Lazarus would still be in the tomb today. It's really important. It's a really critical time, analogy to understand. So, back page 22 is really the essence of what's coming. It's the fall of Daniel 6, and what's going to come is a new financial system. What? Backed by gold and silver, a new church. We're not going to go to church on Sundays anymore. We're going to go to stadiums where you're not cheering against two separate teams. The whole stadium is packed, screaming Christ. Okay, that's the new church. It's a revival that's coming, not these churches, right? The family's going to come back together again. Education system's going to change. The government, the military, the media, the prophecies. The Robin and the other prophets have all talked about the fall of Twitter, fall of Facebook. Okay, that all happens in the new era.
And again, the new era begins. Say that again in that sentence.
So the new era, if the calculations are right, will happen. They'll be 100% live to give time, May of next year. Okay. But I believe begins November.
Okay.
with Leviticus. Okay, so we talked
Okay.
about the Leviticus, and we
Yeah.
talked about Lazarus. So I believe it triggers in November, and then silver is the first thing to take off. Gold follows, and then it's the birth of the new financial system, which is, again, as gold and silver go up, so is the birth of God's kingdom. So all of these things are tied together. And there's just another prophecy by Shane Warren. If you want to, viewers can click that on page 23. I think your viewers are going to like page 24 and 25, because this talks about end times, and it kind of gives, I think, your viewers a prophetic look as to how I believe all this is playing out. Without giving away or saying specifically, this is, when Christ returns, because that's irrelevant. It's still years down the road. It's not important. But what's important is the signs in the heavens. Okay, so we've read about, we all know about the birth of Revelation 12. So Revelation 12 specifically, I want to make sure I got it correctly referenced here. So what Revelation 12 sign was, and this has happened on September 23rd of 2017, it's a marker in the heavens for the return. It's a marker. It gives the world a marker. Remember, Christ comes back, as an adult. He doesn't come back he came once as a child. Now he comes back with a sword. Okay, it's a whole different Christ that's coming back. So he comes back as a sword, but we have a marker in the heavens. So the marker, and I want to confirm this with your viewers a couple different ways so you can understand why this is so important, because we're heading into what's called a royal wedding, which okay? The royal wedding minimum, so if the groom, because remember, that's the birth of the groom child. So if you go back and you study Hebrew text, there's a thing called a bar mitzvah. When does a child become a man?
13, right?
13. So if you go 2017 plus 13, that takes you to a minimum of 2030. Okay, that's really important to understand, because weddings, child or children do not get married.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's good.
Please think about that. A marker in the heaven says a man-child was born, okay? You know that children do not get married. It's really important to understand.
And can I point something out, Bo?
Yes.
Some people were looking at this. I didn't know this till years ago, and then I saw a book on it. Long before astrology became an occultic thing that people use, the plan of redemption was written in the stars. That was a God thing.
Yes.
What you're looking there on the screen is the plan of redemption by God, written in the stars by God, told by God. So we're not talking about astrology here. Just make sure.
No, this is not astrology. This is back to page 16 or 17 where I showed you how those eclipses lined up.
Yeah.
That's mathematics.
Yeah.
That's the hand of God showing his existence.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Good.
It's like when you go back, there's that program, there's I forget what it's called. Let me see if you it's called a Stellaria or something like that, a Stellarium, right? You can use Stellarium and you can read when Christ was born. You can go back and read the scriptures, right? He was born on a crescent moon, and you go back through the math on it. He was actually born, from my calculations, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. He was born Rosh Hashanah, right? He was born September 3rd.
Wow.
He was born September.
Wow, cool.
3 BC.
3 BC. Okay.
9/11.
What?
So
9/11?
So the world celebrates. Satan's plan was to have the world mourn the birth of Christ.
Oh, wow.
That's why Christ, see, he died on the cross at age 30, but he was born 3 years before that. He died at 33. So you have the big picture of time. And so that the starry alignment is nothing more than what you're looking at there on page 24.
Yeah.
It's showing you again the birth of the child.
Yeah.
And so now, if you talk about bar mitzvahs and becoming of age, well, Christ, so the man-child doesn't become of age until 2030.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Christ returns in 2030. I'm saying the child does not become of age until 2030.
Yeah, you're saying he couldn't come at least until then, according to your
Correct.
calculations.
And remember, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Right now,
Mm.
we're at the 20th decade. Father, Son.
Yeah.
We're missing Holy Spirit. Right. We're missing the Trinity. So
Yeah.
so Christ will. My best guess. We're talking in the next decade.
Yeah.
Not because it's too soon. Now, this is further confirmation for your viewers, because I think you're going to love this, Steve. The bride, okay, because it's a royal wedding. And it talks specifically, and the royal wedding is talked, because the bride comes pure. That's the key word. It's pure, white as snow.
Mm.
Steve, we are so far from pure and white as snow right now.
We got a long ways to go.
We got a long ways to go.
Yeah. That's the living proof that he's not coming to snatch away a bride without spot or wrinkle.
Exactly.
Right now, because
that's why I want your reviewers to really understand. For those that are like, Christ is coming tomorrow. Okay, well, maybe you should just like what you just said, spot or wrinkle. So the point being is that this in the latter rain, it talks, again, Hajai, how do you pronounce that, Steve?
Haggai, I guess.
Haggai. 2:9. It says the latter rain. Okay, so this is really great. It says, so the latter temple will be greater than the former. There's a link in there you can click. Okay, so we know the latter rain will be greater than the former. Okay, so let's think about this for a minute. Okay, the former rain, the apostles were bringing people back to life by the name of Christ. They were curing, they were bringing people back, getting vision back, and incredible thing. I don't see a lot of us doing that just yet. I don't know about you, Steve, but I'm not seeing that just yet.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason being, I want your viewers to understand why. It's all about God is a God of time and seasons. So the birth of the bride occurred last year, the latter rain. Now, the odds of this to happen are beyond crazy, but if you go to page 25, next page. So there's a link there. Your viewers are more than welcome to click that blue link. It'll take you right to the article. Basically, an Edenville down. So this is, remember, we're heading back to Eden. So in Edenville, in the township of Hope. This is like crazy.
This is really a real place, huh?
Yes. Okay. I didn't know that. Click the link. And actually, I took a picture of it. Even it's right there on the left. Okay. So in the Edenville, a township of Hope, Michigan, a dam breaks, and this break represents the water breaking for childbirth.
Wow.
The latter temple.
Wow.
That occurred on exactly May 20th. That was why this is so important, because from Trump election, 1,260 days, oil went to zero on April 20th, 2020. Now, 30 days, so one cycle, 1 month or 1 month, takes it precisely to May 20th, 2020. That was the water breaking, but not the birth. The birth occurred on Pentecost, May 30th, 31st of last year. That was 40 days and 40 nights to the mark from oil going to zero and 1,260 days from Trump being elected. Precisely.
Jeez.
Crazy. Now, why is this even get more crazy? Because when you read the cycle of Daniel, 1,260 days or 70 weeks of Daniel, from page prior, so Revelation 12 sign, 70 weeks of Daniel times 2 to the precise day is May 30th, 31st, 2021. So 2 exact cycles of Daniel to the mark.
Wow.
Now, as crazy as that sounds, or wild as that is the opening of the second seal of Revelation. Because on that precise day was the George Floyd riots break out that weekend. And the link is right there, bottom right-hand corner. And so if the Holy Spirit is the latter rain is rebirthed, the power and the fire comes to earth, what will evil do? Freak out, go crazy, and the riots break out on that precise mark of time.
Wow.
And then so we can talk about earlier, but basically the first seal was opened last year as well, and that was the coronavirus itself. And you can see one of my later slides. So basically, I talk about that in the how the first seal was the bow and the crown representing Apollo and the coronavirus. Corona, the crown of Apollo. So that's later in the slides. I think it's one of the slides down low. So now we're talking back, the fall of Goliath, right? So where miracles are coming. So that's the next slide. Then 27 was the 50-year Jubilee for the Nixon moment. So what I want to further on, okay, so now let's go to page 31, please. So those of you who know Jonathan Cahn, he's done an incredible amount of work on the Shemitah. However, 7 years, it's a year of rest, but it's a Shemitah cycle. Something big happens every 7 years. In 2017 was the last 7-year cycle, but it was a time of rest, so nothing dramatic happened. 7 years from that takes us to next year, 2022.
Okay.
I bring that to your viewers because of the next slide that's coming up. And this is very important to understand about the next slide. Third seal. There's two critical points about the third seal. That's in Revelation 6:5. One, it's a black horse, and the other one, the rider is holding scales. The scales represent the financial system that we talked about, the fall of Daniel 2. Okay, and the birth of God's financial system. So basically, the fall of the paper system, the rise of the gold and silver system. So that's a rebalancing of the financial system. The problem is for those who are, who got the, in their arm, it's a black horse, which represents death. So next year, we're looking at potential market crash, collapse. We're looking at death, and we're looking at a massive financial rebalancing of the world financial system, all starting in November and then heading into May of next year, and then continuing with the stock markets probably into, and even into further. If the stock market, the cycle potentially is on it's on 33. There's a 4-2-1 cycle, which basically coordinates perfectly with the Jonathan Cahn Shemitah cycle, indicating that the markets could potentially be crashing on page 33 into the fall of next year. And that will be the stock market. So we'll see. I don't follow the stock markets much. I don't care about the stock markets because the stock markets are nothing but a fraud based on a money system created out of thin air. So it's unimportant to me. The point of the conversation is to be involved in the birth of the new money system, which would be, we talked about earlier, about the scales and the rebalancing of the financial system. So that's in a nutshell what I see happening. If we go to, let me make sure I got the president's. Oh, and then if we go to page, and so the prophecy for silver. This is a prophetic word on silver. Gold goes off page 39. Gold goes off the charts, means extremely high, and silver becomes the new item of economic security that opens a new door of luxury to those who have attained this precious metal. So the point being, and then my charts also indicate that silver is the first one to take off, gold follows. So the new monetary system, it's a new everything, it's a new era that's coming, and the new era is going to be on a kingdom-based economy, not a paper-based economy. If we go to page 61, well, let's fast forward here. So actually, let's start at page 59. I think this is, so some of the revelation, remember at the very beginning of this presentation, Steve, we talked about the 1260-day cycle. Okay. And then how I understood that to relate to gold. But then I started getting revelation how it relates to presidencies. Okay. So what triggered me was when Obama got the Peace Prize. Okay. And that was October 9th, 2009. 1260 days later, he's in Israel on the precise day.
Weird.
None of this is a coincidence.
Doesn't seem like it, does it? No.
No, none of the coincidence. Now, there's a couple other cycles there, but the main one after that is that the Daniel cycle has 30 days. 1,260 days, and then 45 days. And then the Daniel cycle actually completes after the entire cycle completes. That date is November 16th, 2016. Obama goes to visit his father, Zeus, Satan.
What's Zeus, Satan? What do you explain?
So what you have to understand about in Greek mythology,
Yeah.
it's not mythology, Steve, it's history.
It's actually the gods of this earth with a name.
The fallen one. Yes. It's history.
Yeah.
So why on the precise ending of the Daniel cycle to the exact mark God is showing the world, he's showing you how precise his math is. Obama just happens to be in Athens, Greece, the home of Zeus, god of the gods.
Okay. Yeah. And you're saying what you're saying this is probably intentional on his part?
Well, God is showing us timelines.
Yeah.
And I'm showing you how Obama ties in with this.
Okay.
And then the next cycle takes us so the next cycle takes us to page 60, and you'll understand why 45 is born for such a time as this, because 70 years, 7 months, 7 days, is his first day in office. Okay, so we've been back to number 7, Daniel cycle. So we go to page 61. So 61 is his current cycle. So I know you were asking earlier, Steve, can you talk about 45? And I'll say absolutely. This is the slide on him. So he was elected. He wins the election November 8th, 2016. 1,260 days later to the mark, as I spoke earlier, right, was when oil went to zero, or negative 38. First time in history, but that basically foreshadows the fall of the petrodollar, if that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. And then, so following that, then we had 30 days later was the Edenville Dam. We talked about that earlier. And so now we're in the second cycle, which began as of April 21st, and that doesn't end until the end of 2023. So that takes us back to page 17, where we talked about, he's back, he should be back by May. Basically, he's rebuilding the whole system for such a time as this.
Okay.
So that kind of gives you so his cycle doesn't particularly it continues until the end of 23.
Okay.
And then that takes us to evil coming in early, right? So the Antichrist kingdom, like we haven't even seen the rebuilding of the temple, right? So for people to think that we're in end times and evil's got its agenda, remember the Holy Spirit is taken from the earth when all these things come to pass, right? So we're not there yet. And so again, all I can tell you is I don't want to give these are just approximate dates right now on this page, but all I'm telling you is that it's very important to be prepared by the end of or into 2025, because I believe my math calculations show one heck of a lot of problems starting in 2027.
Okay.
For the world. Again, these are far out yet, so don't put these in stone yet, but I'm just telling you that we're, right now, we are still far away from any kind of massive world, evil changes to our world.
And let me just because our time's out here, but I wanted to ask you about the gold, because there's two things. Let's just talk about the practical real quick, unless there's any other point that I want to admit that you haven't hit. But you're recommending that people do invest especially in silver, because it's affordable and it's the common man's. It's going to be the common man's irrefutable, method of payment, right? In other words, no matter what they do to paper money, silver is going to be silver. So you're recommending people that buy some silver?
Okay, so number one is I am not a financial advisor to give people advice on to buy silver.
Okay.
That is something that after this presentation and after things that you've maybe said, that you believe, that I believe, if you've listened to this presentation, if you feel it rhymes with what feels right in your heart, then maybe you should make some good personal and family choices. And so my personal family choices, I'm directly, I personally regularly have been years have been buying silver, and I haven't stopped. Okay. Yeah. Why? Because I know in my heart what's coming, Steve.
Yeah.
Okay. And my point is to give people, we want to give people choices. You want to have for yourself and for your family and those loved ones around you, give them choices as well too. So let's talk about, our God? Well, first off, our God's a multiplier. We know that, Steve. He multiplies everything in our lives. Okay, so when you read the Bible, we know that damages are sevenfold. So if you take the price of silver multiplied by 7 today, that's a minimum of $175 that we should very quickly achieve in the price of silver. And I really want to demarcate this with a keyword: when the glory arrives, when we see the hand of God, because we will not ever see that unless we see the glory come to earth, unless we see the hand of God. And that's coming. Okay. And if you don't believe me, listen to the prophets that Steve has on his show. Okay. They're not saying anything different than I'm saying. They all know a Red Sea moment is coming. They've been prophesied that numerous times. Okay. And then the other thing that Christ said in parables was that blessings are 30, 60, or 100 fold. Okay. So don't be surprised that silver 100 times 25 could at some point, maybe not too far out, be $2,500 per ounce. I'm just telling you, those are God's words, and I'm just doing the math. I am the messenger.
That's good. And one other question here, and then we'll wrap up here. But you had said at the very beginning that every 21 months, the metals, I think you meant gold and silver, but I'll ask you that, is going to hit their next high. When is the next 21 months? According to the chart, when is the next high according to their chart? What month, if you can say that?
Well, I'll just give it the year. It's gonna be exploding, and it's not gonna stop for the next few years. So we know we've got at least 3.5 years. So that'll be 22, 23, 24 into 24 into 25. So you've got ample time, and this is going to be glory, right? So we're talking biblical multiplication of money for next few years.
Okay, just from now going on, starting now into the next few years, you're saying it's
like, yes, remember, because when this thing happens, this is important to understand, because when the world, if we're correct about Lazarus and things going dark, right, David, right, Steve, when things go dark and the light comes back on, and so we get the, Lazarus, the United States comes back to life, right? When the rebirth, when the awakening happens, I highly doubt you'll be able to get any precious metals, because they're just going to go straight crazy.
Yeah.
And so people will not be selling them. So you have, so you either hold it before the event happens, because after it happens, I highly doubt, what I've heard from people is that when those kind of events would happen from the dealers, that they basically would not be selling them because they don't know that they can replenish their inventory.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good wisdom to have it. I was telling you off the air, I had like $2,500 in junk silver. It's the coins that had silver in them. Yes. 64 and before, I think, I'm going by memory, I think 64 and they're like 90% silver. So if those 2,500, if that piece multiplies a few times, then that'll make it worthwhile. And I have some silver coin, and a few gold as well. But the affordable metal is silver. So you were saying, again, you're not a financial advisor. We've got to say that.
Yeah.
But you like accumulating silver. What do you call it? What did you tell me that you like to get?
Yeah. So over the past few years, I used to accumulate gold. I've sold off 90% of my gold holdings, maybe a little more than that even. I converted it all to silver.
Okay.
And the reason is because I know that's what I'm doing, because I know very comfortably that I'm making some good choices. Okay. Yeah. So that's in relation to, where I put my money. Number two is, and for my family, it's me, it's for my family and all the people around me. Okay. That's the critical part. And the other thing, which I think is the moment every time silver jumps, the first thing to sell off the shelves are the silver 1 ounce eagles.
Eagles, yeah.
Okay, so those are really wonderful because they're made by the United States Treasury. They're always going to be money. So I think it's really wonderful. Like I really like having those. Okay,
that's good.
But once you've got a good chunk of those, for myself personally, I started diversifying and buying like 10 ounce bars, because the price for the spread is so much less. Like you're paying a lot more for that.
Oh, you're getting more silver for the dollar if you get 10-ounce bars.
Yes, and then those who are spending even larger amounts of money, myself, I've enjoyed buying the 100-ounce bars as well too. So it's just a matter of, but start at the smaller, work your way. I started smaller and I worked my way bigger. So that's kind of how I look at it, because when these larger numbers hit that we talked about earlier on blessings, right?
Yeah.
First, you're gonna be transacting in the 1-ounce coins, not the. Just do the math. You're not. You'll be buying bigger items with the 10-ounce bars or the 100-ounce bars. So you definitely. I definitely like having the 1-ounce coins.
That's good. Yeah. Well, Bo, that's really, really good. We went a bit over time, but that's okay. It was worth it. God bless you. I thank you. Tell people, Bo, how to get a hold of you. If they download it, they're going to have some links. But if they didn't download it, how would they get a hold of your organization?
So I have two ways. Our website, where we talk about, everything, many of my videos, and this my bigger projection or my big look on things about getting ready, or how to prepare for arcs or build arcs. So that's gold last year 2020, and then forecast gold 2020 forecast.com, and that's my website. And then if you want to always watch the most recent videos or things that I get interviewed on, the YouTube channel. And you can just put in my name, Bo, and then Polny or Gold 2020 Forecast. But all the videos will pop up that I've, more of the recent interviews. So those are the two ways that you can come catch more of my information.
Good.
I'll just tell you, I still cannot believe that I get to be here with you, Steve. So
thank you.
You are a blessing.
Oh, well, thank you. The honor is mine, and I appreciate this. I mean, this is like my third or fourth encounter where I watch a little bit of your videos, and this time I got even more. But your head's gonna for the first few times. There's a lot there, but so I encourage people.
Yeah, I would actually just apologize for a minute. Just please, I covered a lot because I've been doing this for years. Okay, so to me, it's like it's second. It's just easy. But please watch us a second time. Or your viewers watch a second time. Take the PDFs. I've done this out of my heart for your viewers. For free, Steve, to give them a look into timelines and near term and far term, but just to get a general idea of what's going on. So please, just watch it again, analyze it, the PDFs. But because there's a lot of information. You're right, Steve.
So good, so good. Well, I'm sure we'll have you back on in the future as things get more interesting and increasingly interesting. And Bo, thank you again. I appreciate it on behalf of everybody. Appreciate it. We'll see you all again tomorrow at the normal time. I think Mario Murillo's on tomorrow. It'll be great. He also has he's an evangelist. He's also going to be talking about the current events as we've been talking about all year long. So thanks again, Bo. God bless you. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye.